and welcome back to You're Literally On. Today we are jumping into the gates of Mormon heaven, and I am joined by the fabulous, iconic, and wonderful Sarah. I'm so happy you're here again because this is a fun fact. We had to re-record this episode.
And that's okay. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay! Yeah, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah. My name is Sarah, and I grew up Mormon in the South, actually, of the United States of America. So that's been an interesting childhood. My mom is actually Irish Catholic, converted to Mormonism. So I have all kinds of fun stuff that we'll talk about today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have some, boots on the ground reporting.
Yeah, right? And it's been a long time since I've been to church, so I'll try to remember some of the details.
Yeah, well, that brings us to today's book, Bad Mormon by Heather Gay. And this is Heather Gay. Oh my God, Heather Gate. Heather Gay. This is going to be part 1 of a 3-part series. And a little bit of background about Heather Gay. Do you watch Real Housewives?
I don't. When you first approached me about recording this, I did watch the first episode of Salt Lake City just so I could kind of get a grasp on some of the characters. And I thought she was pretty funny, actually. I would have gotten along with her if we had grown up Mormon together.
Yeah, she's kind of known for being the... Oh, what is the word I'm looking for? Not hostess, but she's like the narrator of the series.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, she is definitely a fan favorite for the first few seasons. She lost some favor this recent season and the season before during Black Eye Gate. And then, this season she made a slight comeback until part 3 of the reunion. And fans were still upset at her because she revealed what happened during Black Eye Gate. And a lot of stuff was revealed during that, and it just left a bad taste in people's mouth.
Right. It's hard to come back from that. You can, but it can be hard to come back from that.
Yeah, so a little bit about the Salt Lake City franchise for anyone unfamiliar, and for you, Sarah. It's one of the newer franchises. It only has 4 seasons, which just ended a few months ago. I stay on the Housewives and Bravo subreddits, and Salt Lake City gets called Community Theater Housewives pretty frequently. And it's not as a dig. It's more because the women on Salt Lake City are clearly fans of the show, and they do seem to be performing housewives, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. They've seen the other shows or the other seasons, so they kind of know what people like and what they don't like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's genuinely great TV. This new season was crazy. It was so good. I really like most of the quote-unquote characters. Heather, our topic today, she is an original castmate along with Whitney Rose, Lisa Barlow, and Meredith Marks. They all started in season 1. They're still on the show. They're all really compelling to watch, and they have varying personalities that make it easy to latch on to one as a favorite, one that you really root for. And I will say the secret to watching any Bravo show really, but especially Housewives, is never back a horse. Never stan a housewife. This show is much more enjoyable.
I used to watch the original one, OC, the Orange County one.
Yeah.
And every time there was one that was my favorite, they would do something either halfway through at the end, and I'd be like, God damn it. Now I can't like you for at least 2 episodes.
Yeah, that's what I was talking. Don't pick one that you like. There's always one that you will favor, but never back the horse. Just don't.
No.
Yeah, Lisa Barlow, she has her little catchphrases like "baby gorgeous" and "I love that." Meredith Marks, she has double-breasted blazers. Try saying that 3 times fast. She has her bathtub and a tendency to disengage. Whitney Rose is the wild one. She's the wild card, bitches. She is kind of hippie vibe. She has a really high-pitched voice. And she kind of has a scandalous affair with her husband. I mean, they're obviously married now, but the way they got together was a little scandalous.
Nice.
But our topic for today, Heather, she has religious trauma. She's got a divorce and 3 daughters. Yeah, I think it's 3. And she has a really good sense of humor. These combined just make her stand out among fans. Yeah, Heather, she's really the relatable one. She's down to earth. And I have some clips for you to give a sense of her personality if you want to watch them.
Absolutely.
Do the truffle fries?
Yes.
And then fried Brussels sprouts Caesar.
Okay.
And also some panko fried risotto balls. 5 of them. I'm taking over ordering because these skinny bitches don't know how to order.
Okay, are we done?
2 Reubens. If I wait on these ladies to choose, I'm going to be splitting a side salad with Mary. And that's not the lunch I want to have. The bottomless Prosecco, so if it gets down, you just refill it. Caroline is the golden middle daughter of my older sister Jenny, who is the perfect Mormon.
Very easy.
Well done.
Caroline went on a mission, went to BYU, and now Caroline and her husband have decided that being Mormon isn't for them. We should really toast to like burning in hell. Let's do it.
Yeah, to being
Outer darkness.
Outer darkness is the lowest degree of heaven in the Mormon faith. You have the celestial degree, which is for the tried and trues. Then you have an exception for those that can't make it all the way. That's the terrestrial. That's like your Lisa Barlows, your, people that just weren't valiant in their faith. And then you have the telestial, which is your serial killers, borderline murderers, pretty much awful people. And then you have outer darkness, who are people like me that have accepted the gospel, been married in the temple, made all the covenants, and then chosen to walk away. So I would have to ask Jeffrey Dahmer to get me into his degree of heaven.
Yeah, that is just a little taste of Heather. What are your initial thoughts?
First of all, that is me at every lunch. I love to eat and I want to try a little bit of everything and I always take control. So immediately in love with her. And it's always nice to have other former Mormons that you can make little inside jokes with. And I thought that was funny because her and I would be in outer darkness because I grew up Mormon and was baptized and I left the church when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. So I guess Heather and I will be besties in outer darkness together.
You guys can be Jeffrey Dahmer's sister wives.
Whoop, whoop. That's fucked up.
Yeah, you definitely get the sense of why people really like her.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the book. Heather announced the book on the show and people were really intrigued. On one hand, it was a peek behind the curtain and a close-up look into a secretive religion written by a woman who Bravo fans genuinely liked. On the other hand, during season 3 of the show, Heather wakes up with a black eye, and when I tell you, this black eye was hyped the fuck up. Fans, including myself, we were foaming at the mouth, wanting to know what was going on with the black eye.
Right.
When the episodes aired that covered the lead up to the black eye, it was a nothing burger. Literally nothing was explained, and it remained this big mystery. Theories ranged from she was drunk and she hit her eye on the corner of a cabinet to bad Botox, and my personal favorite, Angie K, suggesting Heather and former castmate turned prison mate, Jen Shaw, were scissor kicking, resulting in an injury.
Stop.
Yeah.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah. So Angie K, she's the newest housewife to the show. She holds a snowflake. I love her. She's our Greek Dawn. I don't exactly recall if Heather alluded to her book addressing the black eye or if fans just assumed that it would. But either way, people were hoping it would. And spoiler alert, it doesn't. It doesn't cover the black eye at all. It doesn't even come up. So before we get into the book, I'm not Mormon. I identify as Christian. And when I was a kid, I was raised in a religious cult. It was like a Christian sect cult. And as a Christian who has religious trauma from the church, I am very critical of the overall Western doctrine, and that includes Mormonism. I don't like to talk about my faith a lot, but I did want to make it a point to say that because, like most people in this country, unfortunately, we all understand religious trauma and struggling with living your life after kind of unshackling yourself and peeling the layers of that back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a little disclaimer that, I'm not trying to intentionally attack Mormonism or anything. I just want to have fun with it.
Right. And have a discussion. And, I grew up with it and it's not for me. And there's definitely some religious trauma that I took home from it that I still try to kind of get over at this point because it's been so long. I still have a lot of Mormons in my life that I absolutely adore and love and know that I can rely on them. And I'm very aware that it has nothing to do with them and their choices. This is between me and God or whatever is out there. I always say, I'm putting it out to the universe instead of like, I'm going to pray or something like that. And people make fun of me, but that's how I feel because I just don't know. And I don't want to intentionally insult any Mormons. So just disclaimer on my part, I am speaking from my experience and my heart. So I'm sorry if that upsets anybody. It's not my intention.
Yeah, don't come for anybody. Or I guess come for me. I don't know. Leave mean comments for me. I make my husband go through them, so I don't have to read them.
No, she's the sweetest person ever. Don't do that to her.
Don't tell people that, Sarah. I have a reputation to uphold.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's really badass and scary. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. So the book is organized into 5 parts: bad daughter, bad missionary, bad wife, bad Mormon, and bad ass. The chapters all have super cute titles, and they're lyrics from various songs. I'm pretty sure they're all song lyrics because I didn't recognize some of them. Some of them might be movie quotes. But yeah, they all have really cute like chapter names, basically.
I love that.
The best thing about this book is that Heather's humor really shines. She genuinely is a great writer, and the book is fantastic at pulling the reader in and having us cringe, laugh, and cry with the author. I did read on the Housewives subreddit that some people found this book boring, although entertaining, and I gotta say, I don't think it was boring. I really enjoyed it. The chapters were short, Heather was concise with what she wanted to convey, and it all flowed really well. The other thing I really liked about this book is Heather does this thing where she creates these little inside jokes with the reader. She'll tell an anecdote and then make callbacks to like that anecdote. For example, there's a part where she sneaks off when she's on her mission and she watches the movie Titanic. And after that moment, all throughout the book, she will relate her life back to the Titanic, the movie. And she does this a lot, and I really liked it. It shows that these moments had like importance to her and really shaped her outlook on life.
Right. I love when writers bring things back. I always find that it's really good writing, even in Hamilton where there's constantly like the same themes throughout the entire, 3 hours. So I love when writers do that, when they do the little throwbacks, and it does feel like it's an inside joke between you two. Like, you're in on something with them. So I just think that's good writing.
Yeah, it makes it feel personable,
Right.
So the stuff I didn't like about the book, some of the pop culture references went over my head, and Heather doesn't explain them, so I would have to Google them. She also does this thing when talking about stuff in Mormonism. I completely understand not wanting to bog the reader down with the intricacies of the LDS church, but I do think that expounding on things would have helped, or even having a glossary somewhere that readers could reference would have helped.
Right.
But those are my only 2 gripes, really. Overall, I really enjoyed this book.
Right. And those aren't really big deals. I mean, they are, but like you could, I don't know, I guess Google them. It's more annoying to have to do that because you don't want to stop what you're reading to like Google something. But I guess if that's your worst feedback, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I am a fair and benevolent God on this podcast, okay? I try to be at least. So to start, Heather dedicates her book to her daughters, Ashley, Georgia, and Annabelle. I thought this was really sweet. She has an author's note about the terms Mormon and Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and explains why Mormons don't like to be called Mormon, but that she's going to use the terms interchangeably, which is what I'm going to do because Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does not roll off the tongue.
No, they like to be called LDS, Latter-day Saints.
But
that doesn't,
better.
and it like does Mormon, I don't know. I guess it's like that stigma that you're like, oh, Mormons are bad, but LDS is good, even though it's the same thing. It's like rebranding or something.
I guess it does sound kind of fancier, you know? It's like,
Yes,
I'm not
I'm
a
part
Mormon.
of the
I'm part of the LDS
church. Yes. My least favorite thing, just side note really quick, is when I was growing up and people would be like, oh, you're Mormon, you don't believe in Jesus. And I'm like, the title of my church is literally, that's Jesus Christ in the title. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like my church's government name has Jesus Christ in it.
Like, what are you talking about? And I'd be like, no, they're like, well, you don't believe in God. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's true either. Like, people just made shit up about Mormons. And I would be so confused. I'd be like, I don't understand what's happening, but okay.
Yeah, her prologue is about her receiving the opportunity to do the show and wrestling with her faith in that choice to do the show. She says that the opportunity came in the wake of her life imploding and that she viewed it as a way out. So I thought, it's
I
kind of
love
nice.
that. And if you're going through a lot, and you see just kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what that light is, I feel like you're going to hold on to it really tightly. And I mean, look at her now. She's on the show and she's written this book and she's making this life for her and her 3 daughters without like having to rely on somebody else, which, I respect that.
Yeah. And I think this is fairly common in housewives. The cinematic universe, the Housewives cinematic universe, is that sometimes the women will go on the show because it is a way for them to get out of a bad situation. At least some of the fans do theorize that. I do tend to believe that, if you're in maybe like a really bad marriage and you see this as a way to expose your bum ass man.
And there's a lot of women on the shows a little bit here or there. I guess I watched Atlanta too because I live in Georgia, where most of them were divorced or remarried. And I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're right. Like that's that income, especially, and I mean this in a kind way. I don't mean this as a slight towards people who marry a person that's wealthy, but if you were, kind of used to that lifestyle, this could kind of help you afford it while you're still working. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, it definitely is a way to get a financial foothold.
Yeah.
Especially if you are financially tied to your significant other.
Yeah, which just really, really sucks because I think some people don't leave their partners because they're so financially tied to them. And that just sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely super common though,
Yeah. Yeah.
So the book starts with part 1, Bad Daughter. Heather opens up with being a little girl around 5 or 6, and she views herself as the queen of her domain being her backyard surrounded by a privacy fence. At the time, her mother had been reading her the story Incident at Hawks Hill, and Heather becomes convinced that outside of her massive privacy fence, there is a feral child that needs to be rescued. Yeah, so one day she figures out a way to reach the gate latch and leave to find her adventure. Once outside, she realizes that the gate is built in a way that once it's closed, it blends in with the rest of the gate, making it impossible for a 5 or 6-year-old child to get back in. She writes, "My ambition had exceeded my ability, and I understood why my parents had built the fence and been explicit about the rules. Because they loved me, because they wanted to protect me, because they knew it was dangerous. They knew there was no way back. On the other side of the gate, it was all so clear. I was locked out of my life, locked away from my family, abandoned in the lone and dreary world. The adventures I had planned forsaken, the good intentions I had nurtured long forgotten. Outside the gate was bad, inside the gate was good, and I needed to get back home." What are your thoughts on that?
Oof. As a mom, that hits really, really hard because our jobs as parents are to protect our children, no matter what it is. And, you know, we're all humans and we're doing the best that we can. And the symbolism of her being like, I need to be on my own and I need to have these adventures, and then realizing she can't come back. And there are a lot of Mormon families where the kids decide to leave the church and they're not welcome back. That was not the case for me. Fortunately, I have an incredibly amazing and loving mom that, like, I genuinely think if I were a serial killer, she'd be like, well, I'm going to send you to jail, but I'll pay for the lawyers, you know? Like, she's just, yeah, like she just eternally has my back. But I don't know, that whole thing kind of made me want to cry, because I can see it from the perspective of this person who like wants that freedom and wants to go out into the world and experience it, and feeling like the door is shut behind you and you can't ever go back. And then as a mom, I just like, you want your kids to go out into the world. And also I want to lock her in the backyard and have her be safe and in a bubble, when that's just not realistic.
Yeah, and I know last time you brought up that it was pretty like symbolic of her feeling like she had been locked out of her life. Yeah. And I am an idiot and was like, I didn't even catch that metaphor. And now that I've kind of like had time to think about it and rereading this back, I realized that Heather wasn't even trying to do anything bad. You know, she was just trying to like forge her own path, go find a feral child in
I just love that she was trying to help something, but I do think the symbolism of the gate was just so deep and just hit so hard. And I absolutely loved it. I kind of want to cry every time I read your quote when you're like reading it through, because you can see it so much from both perspectives.
Yeah, this quote and this moment really sets the tone for the rest of the book. This moment truly impacts Heather for the rest of her life. She says that she is what is called a BIC, or born in the covenant, which means that her parents were temple-married Mormons before she was born, and that BICs are considered natural heirs to the blessings of the priesthood and part of a strain of sin-resistant souls with special promises and responsibilities. She doesn't expand on what these promises or responsibilities are, so I have nary a clue. I didn't know if you knew.
Okay, so little side note, Utah Mormons are not the same as regular Mormons. So just to throw that out there, Utah Mormons definitely have we live in Zion and we're like kind of superior, like we're royalty because we live in Salt Lake City. And whether you relate to that or not is your business. It just is what it is from an outsider. So I didn't have experiences with those people, but we would look to families like on TV at General Conference or places like that. And we'd be like, yeah, those are those people who are like, it's our responsibility to convert everybody. It's our responsibility to be like the premium Molly Mormons, which is like a perfect Mormon woman who like stays at home, barefoot in the kitchen, cooks, has 12 kids, all of that. So I imagine it's something like that, like be perfect, marry the perfect man, have all the kids, reproduce the world with Mormons.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I didn't think about how Utah Mormons are probably slightly different than other Mormons. I don't know.
Oh, they absolutely are. And on another side is my mom is converted to Mormonism. So she comes from a very different perspective. You find that converts tend to be a little bit more, again, I'm saying this with kindness, tend to be a little bit more like flexible in their way of thinking and a little bit more empathetic. When we would have people in the church who like went back generations, they were, you know, just as kind as everybody else, but they were definitely a lot more judgy. Like they didn't understand why I would question my faith when to me and my mom is a healthy thing to question your faith, because you should question your surroundings and you should, put that out there. Why wouldn't you? But that's not how generational Mormons feel.
Well, that is the perfect segue for my next quote. Heather writes, "I didn't know that we were religious. I just thought we were better than everyone else."
Nice.
This made me laugh. It doesn't make me laugh because this is not a Mormon specific thing. I feel like most religious people see themselves this way. She talks about how growing up Mormon didn't really feel like anything. Her family was normal. Their house was normal. They had birthday parties and attended community events. So as a kid, her Mormonism was never a thing. She talks about how Mormonism was the secret ingredient making her family deliriously happy. Growing up, she viewed Mormonism and the LDS Church as having all the answers to the test. She wanted to spread this proven system of happiness with others. And I completely get that. As a kid, you aren't really aware of things being amiss under the surface. And as someone who grew up in a religious home, you do view your way of life that way. You don't view yourself as being religious.
No, but you have this almost like you have this gift that other people don't have, and you need to share it with people. And, you're a better person because you're spreading the gospel. And my job is to spread the gospel to people and to get as many people converted over to the religion as possible, which we will definitely talk about later on. But I very much disagree being friends with somebody just to convert them into a religion. But again,
oh my God,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, no, I have lots of experience with that.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess especially if you live in an insular community and all the adults and kids in your life are people that you know from the church or believing the same things you do, it does kind of create this echo chamber. Not that that's necessarily bad, I guess. I don't think Mormonism is out here single-handedly destroying the earth. I think that they're doing nice things for people. It's fine, whatever.
Right. They're mowing your yard for free and helping you move. They're very nice people.
Okay, so I used to be a delivery driver in Athens, and I loved the UGA Mormon group that's out there near Kelly and Cheetos.
There's it's the oh my God, what's it called? The Institute, because that's where if you were college age, you went there, so you didn't have to go with all the married people with kids.
Yeah, but on game days, it'd be hot as fuck in my car, and I'd be in traffic, and they would give me so many bottles of water, and I would just be tears in my eyes, thank you.
They're really nice people. I have called them up before and been hey, I'm moving to Savannah. Can I get some missionaries to help me unload my U-Haul? And they send them out and I buy them soda and pizza. And then they'd be we really want to see you at church. And I'd be oh yeah, I bet I'll be there. And then I never show up, which is such an asshole move, but still they were always really, really nice. Anytime I would see a missionary and they would come into a restaurant that I worked at and they're getting to go food, I always bought their food because I want I have nephews and my sister was a missionary, and don't be an asshole to them. They're just doing what they think is right, even if we don't agree with it.
Yeah, and just from reading Heather's book, I know that they do not be paying them fairly.
No, they don't get paid at all. They have to pay to be there. They don't get paid. So again, I'll throw you some to-go chicken fingers at the restaurant I work at.
Yeah, perfect. I feel that's fine. You're doing your civic duty. Heather tells another anecdote where she pretends to be a robot with robot arms. So she grabs a pair of scissors and pretends they're her little grippy robot arms. And she accidentally cuts a hole in her mom's brand new curtains. Her parents come home and they quickly see this hole that she's accidentally cut in the curtains. And Heather lies. She just denies it flat out. Her dad at the time works for the FBI. And even under his interrogation of her, she still denies the crime, which is impressive, honestly. She writes, I didn't yet know that I was already steeped in the lifeblood of devout religion. Deny, deny, deny. She goes on to explain that this moment was the beginning of learning the gendered roles of behavior. She was a bubbly, loud, sometimes obnoxious, stubborn, and strong-willed little girl, and her parents seemed to view that as a bad thing. She says that she realized that she needed to be softer, which broke my heart because, once again, this is not a Mormon-specific thing.
Yeah. No, like I grew up, I was a 90s teenager, and it's very much a role of a girl to just like be soft and be quiet and be skinny and be perfect. And that was just like beat down our throats. If you look at any 90s ad for like CoverGirl or Victoria's Secret, like that was our role model. And then to have that religion that was constantly telling you, really when it boiled down to, is that I was less than. I was not as good as a man, and it was my job to provide in this way where I was at home, barefoot and pregnant. And at no point in time did I ever feel like that was not true to me. And I imagine Heather, and hearing stories about her, didn't feel true to her as well.
Yeah, I have always been just like a little too big, metaphorically and I guess physically. I don't know.
Right.
But I've always been just like very loud and boisterous. And I do remember my dad specifically just making me feel like I didn't have the right to take up so much space in the world. And so it really did become about like becoming smaller, becoming softer. I think this is very like most women experience this, unless you have like really nice, crunchy parents, I guess.
Oh God. Yeah. I feel like I didn't have a dad around, but I had other men and other teachers. And I remember even my male teachers trying to make me feel small. Like my one orchestra teacher, I laughed at something and he told me only small minds laugh at like silly things, essentially. And like, why would you tell a 12-year-old that? And I feel like I was constantly, every time I laughed or every time I had an opinion, that I was wrong and that I should just shut up and sit down. And I think that's part of the reason I'm such a people pleaser to a fault, because I'm so scared to share my opinions sometimes. And I have a lot of opinions and I feel very passionately about a lot of things, and I don't feel like I can share them. And I wonder sometimes if it's because when I was little, I was supposed to be on the couch, quiet, zip it. And maybe why when I was a teenager and I moved out, I went so wild and I lashed out so much because I didn't know how to be a person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And I mean, I kind of had a similar thing, I guess. Like, I just, even like my mom, right? My mom is a former pageant queen. She's a former Miss Teen Georgia, or she like competed for Miss Teen Georgia.
That's
I don't know.
awesome.
She's got a big ass crown and a big ass trophy. And I remember as a little kid, all of her pageant dresses were just like shoved to the back of her closet.
Like they didn't matter?
Like, yeah, it just felt like her accomplishments like weren't even allowed to take up space in our home.
Which is so dumb. And that is not how I have a teenage daughter. And that is definitely not how I'm trying to raise her. I'm like, if you have an opinion about something, you need to tell people. Like, you know, you don't have to be obnoxious.
Start a podcast.
But like,
fuck it.
hell yeah. Like,
start a podcast.
You voice.
Even if you're like me and you're just like screaming into the abyss, you know, right. Isn't it Nietzsche? Nietzsche says the abyss will stare back. Somebody will hear me.
Yeah. The two people that will listen to this are going to be like, fuck yeah, ladies, you go.
Yeah. So it's around the age of 8. Heather's family relocates to Denver, and she's given the responsibility of cooking her family dinner. She writes, I was steeped in the noble art of cooking, cleaning, and homemaking, a sacred, dutiful ritual that instilled in me a self-esteem and self-worth derived from things that I could control. This is really important because this worldview shapes Heather's life. And as a control freak, I really relate to this. If your work is why you're praised, you do pin everything on your output.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I are very, very similar in a lot of ways in the years that I've gotten to know you. Like, that little bit of praise just like makes you, it's almost like a high. And you're like, oh my God, I have to keep putting my all, even if you're draining and pouring from an empty cup. You like almost hold on to it because somebody might say something nice to you and might tell you you're doing a good job. And I feel like that's a very patriarchal, that's not the word. What am I trying to say?
Patriarchal?
Yeah, that word. System that has been put into place. Like, we're constantly chasing validation. Like, we can't just say our work is good enough and like sit down on the couch and be done. Or I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling.
No, to bring it back to your sitting down on the couch thing, I think it stems from you are being told you're not allowed to take up like this much space in the room, but then all of a sudden you're given this space where you can be big and you can be obnoxious and you are getting praised for it. So you do you try to do as best as you can. And because you know, like, this is the area that I can get like not attention, but this is the space that I'm allowed to just expand in.
Yeah. Like, and people respond positively for the most part, you know, even if it's just cleaning out a cooler or cleaning something or organizing something. And they're like, oh my God, you did a really good job. This is really great. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm myself, when realistically, that's not who you are. You did a task, but you just thrive on that reinforcement.
Yeah, because you're not getting it elsewhere,
up. You know? Like, what the hell?
So I wanted to mention this part just because I thought it was weird. And maybe it's just because Heather's from like the West. She grew up in the West. Or I guess, Colorado's the West, right?
Yeah.
Northwest? Yeah.
I know the Midwest is through the St. Louis Arch. So anything over that is the West. I don't know.
Listen, I went to public school in Georgia.
Me too.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm doing my best over here.
I went to public school in Clark County, and that's one of the worst counties in the state of Georgia. So, hello.
So, Heather talks about being out in the grocery store with her mom, and they see someone from their church. Heather calls out to the lady and refers to her as Sister Gillespie. This is when her mother chastises her because she says that people won't understand when Heather calls another person sister or brother. And I found this surprising because, you know, growing up in the church cult, I grew up in, we referred to fellow members this way and it was never an issue. Like, maybe it's just specifically a Bible Belt thing, but like sister and brother or like father and stuff is just like always, I guess father and mother is more of like a Catholic thing, but yeah, brother and sister was never
that was not a thing that I ever felt weird about. And, you know, in my town, I feel like we had, everybody was Baptist or Southern Baptist. And I'm not quite sure what the difference is between the two. I just know that there is a difference. And I never felt weird about the brother or sister thing because I do feel like that might just be a Southern thing. Like, I could have whipped out a Bible at school like during lunch, and I don't feel like anybody would have looked at me like I was a weird kid. They looked at me like I was weird for being Mormon, not like Baptist.
Okay, the difference between Baptist and Southern Baptist is that Southern Baptist love food. Like we just bring food to everything. And I think brother and sister is more, at least in my experience, was more of like a Pentecostal holiness, like / non-denominational thing. They're like really big into that, or like apostolic churches I know do that.
Okay.
I think maybe Lutherans do, but I'm not exactly sure. I've only been to a Lutheran church once.
I don't think I know any Lutherans.
I know one. That's it.
I know who founded the Lutheran church, and I don't know why I know that.
It's Diet Catholicism. It really is. Like, that is like what...
Isn't that why he founded the church? So he could like kind of tweak some of the things?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it is Diet Catholicism.
Diet Catholicism.
She says that the LDS church would invite people to things like barbecues or a picnic and not mention that it was a religious event. She says that element would have to be a wonderful surprise. And that quote right there is like a through line quote that she uses throughout the book. And I've just been saying it in my everyday life because it's so good. Just, it'll be a wonderful surprise. Her parents have another couple over for dinner who aren't Mormon. And Heather is super intrigued, I guess, because she's never really like encountered a non-Mormon human before. Her parents tell her that the couple is trying to have a baby, but they're having issues. So Heather's parents are having them over because the church sometimes helps with these things. And honest to God, I thought this was going to be like a wife swapping sperm donor situation. I was like, holy shit, is someone going to impregnate the wife? Like, is Heather's dad going to like, what is the situation? Which shocked me because I did not think the Mormons like got down like that.
They do not. Those are reformed Mormons that have the sister wives, not the regular ones. So no.
But this wasn't even like a sister wife situation. I was just like, oh, I guess they're just like going out old school with this.
Like a handmaid style kind of thing where the maid has to like, yeah.
But
no, they were probably just talking about giving a blessing. Like if you have the, why can't I think of words today? The pay,
I don't even know what we're trying to think of.
No, you wouldn't because it's a Mormon word. What? Hold on. I gotta Google this shit.
It's okay. Why you do that? That's not what happens. I don't think any turkey basters were involved. But it could be because the couple never makes another appearance and we don't know what happens to them. So that could be what happens.
The priesthood. When you hold the priesthood, you get this like anointed oil and you can put like oil on people's heads and you can give them these special blessings because you hold the priesthood. It's like, it's oil, but I guess it's like kind of like holy water. Like a priest can use holy water on things. Yeah. And that's the same with Mormons. So I wonder if that's what they were going to like give them a blessing and like that was going to cure your insides was magic oil.
Yeah. Heather says, I didn't know how or why specifically the church could help, but it made sense to me that they were the ones to ask. If you were in trouble, the church was there on the double. We had systems to feed, clothe, house, and employ every church member. If this couple desperately wanted a child, if this couple desperately wanted anything, the church could provide it, but they would have to get baptized first. And in my notes, I wrote, it's not altruism if there's a catch. And also, preying on the vulnerable is fucked.
Yeah, I agree. And there were times where when we had a homeless lady who lived with us. I mean, literally, if you're a Mormon and you need help, they're going to take care of you. The downside that I get on my high horse about is that it's only good for the Mormon church. You know, like, it's so fucked up that I was bringing my friends to church to be like, hey, you're my friend, but you should come to church with me and become a Mormon because, like, I'm basically saving your life. Like, was I ever their friend? I mean, I was, but why did I have this ulterior motive to try to convert people? And if you're ever meet a Mormon, ultimately that's what they're going to try to do is break you down and have you convert because you can live in this perfect bubble where you're fully taken care of. And that's so tempting to a single mom who has multiple kids, or you live on welfare, or you're an older retiree and you live on a pension. Like, if you're having a hard time and somebody comes to you and they're like, here are all the answers, you're going to take it, right?
Yeah. It's just insidious to me to invite people to an event, not because you like their company, but like because you view them as a potential recruit. It's just gross. And then not giving someone the chance to deny participation is withdrawing their consent from the situation. You're not giving them the truth. Therefore, you're not giving them the option to opt out because maybe they don't want to go to a religious function. Like, you're frauding people. You're purposely like withholding information. And this is something I have a lot of experience with, unfortunately. I used to hang out with this group. I called them the quote unquote Jesus friends. And they would do this shit. Like, they would invite people to like bonfires and cookouts, but then like wouldn't tell people like what actually the event was. And then when you're there, you're like in this scenario where you kind of feel obligated to just go along with it. And they would invite like all kinds of people into the friend group. And it wasn't because they enjoyed them as human beings or like they thought that they were fun to be around or like really cared about them. It was because they like saw them as somebody to save. And they one time told me that they can't cast their pearls among the swine, me being the swine. And it was just like people are not projects. That's all I'm saying. It's like it's okay if you want to care about people's souls. Like who doesn't? I feel like that's a normal, like empathetic, natural human reaction to do, especially if you are like religious. But like don't hoodwink people, is what I'm saying. Like be upfront, or you're not really being a genuine friend if that other person decides like not to tag along with like your belief, and then all of a sudden you don't want to be friends with that person anymore. Yeah. It's like you were never their friend to begin with.
No, you were just like a number, because if you get a certain amount of numbers, it's like you get a prize. I mean, you don't, but you would in heaven or whatever. I don't know. I just think it's
okay. I know we kind of talked about this last when we recorded the Lost episode, but it's the MLM shit, which is also a huge thing in the Mormon community. And it's like, because like MLMs is just this. Like, it's just this.
Yeah. And we all saw Lulu Rowe, right? The Lulu Rich documentary. Yeah. They were
huge in the Mormon community. Mormon lady. Which, there are other like systemic issues. Like, I'm not going to like hate on Mormon women who do MLMs, because MLMs are specifically designed and marketed to target women that are maybe not in the best financial situations, that like maybe can't have jobs away from their homes. So like I get it. But the MLM structure, like how you sell people on your downline is this. Like it's just this.
It is. And it's like the more numbers you have, the more tithing you have coming into your ward, and the more money that we can do to help people is what they're disguising it as. Yeah. And I just, okay, that sounds messed up that I'm like helping people is bad. That's not the bad part. It's that the Mormon religion up there with the Catholic Church, they are two of the wealthiest churches, not in the United States, in the world. I don't know what their numbers are on the scale, but I want to say they're both in the top 5. The Catholicism has to be number 1. Just not Googling it. I don't think churches should be rich. If you're
pay your
doing
taxes, churches. Pay your motherfucking taxes.
Fucking preach, Dacey. But if you are churching right, you would be poor, because you would be helping not just your people in your church. You would be helping everybody. If all the churches got together, we could literally end homelessness. We could end hunger. We could end child abuse. Except don't get me started on abuse in churches. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm done.
So
I told you
it's fine. It's a little triggering for me too, because this shit pisses me off. Like, just like, I don't know, if you don't fuck with people, don't fuck with people. If you like people, that's fine. But back to Heather's story.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
She's living her life, and she's viewing the LDS church as normal, and she's not really thinking anything about it until one day at one of her soccer games, her dad gets into a scuffle with another parent. This guy makes a comment about her dad's weird underwear. And this is the moment when Heather realizes that people may view her family as weird. To her, garments aren't weird. They're normal, and that they're like this deeply symbolic thing, which also, because I did Google this, or I looked it up on the Exmo subreddit. I did not know that garments go under your underwear. I thought they were like a slip, like they go over your bra in like boxes and stuff. So like that sounds really uncomfortable to like put on a thing and then put your bra on, and then you're like under, I don't know, just like it sounded uncomfortable to me.
I only know that because I have a mom and 2 sisters. And, you know, when you're around ladies in your family, like you guys change, you know, together. And that's the only reason that I knew that.
Yeah.
It's weird though.
Yeah, I mean, I just did not know that they went under everything.
Not
I
the
didn't know they were
garments
like
are
supposed to touch your
weird.
skin.
Like, the garments are what they are. And I hate when people are like, tell me about the magic underwear. Like, don't be rude. Okay? Like, just because you don't understand something, like, don't be an asshole. I would never want to wear them. I do think it's weird you put your underwear on top just because I have weird texture issues with my skin. I would not like that. And that's what I meant by weird. But like, again, just because you don't fully understand something, you just don't have to be an asshole about it. And don't fucking
just,
call them magic underwear.
Yeah, and don't ask people about their underwear anyways. That's fucking weird.
Weird.
I guess if you're a dad at a kid's soccer game and you get into a fight with another dad, maybe that's the only acceptable reason to do that. But also, like, why are you fighting with other dads at your kid's soccer game? Like, go to therapy.
Yeah. Why are you talking about some child's father's underwear? That is none of your business. Like, that is next level.
So, fast forwarding, Heather hits puberty. Bum, bum, bum. And like most teen girls, she is boy crazy. It's also around this time when the boys and girls in the church are separated and they start learning their respective roles in the church. As a girl, Heather is in the Young Women organization. There she learns about the young woman values, which are basically guidelines on what the perfect Mormon woman should be. She quotes the motto, "We are daughters of our Heavenly Father who loves us, and we love him. We will stand as witnesses of God at all times and in all things and in all places as we strive to live the young woman values, which are faith, divine, individual worth, knowledge, choice and accountability, good works, integrity, and virtue. We believe as we come to accept and act upon these values, we will be prepared to strengthen home and family, make and keep sacred covenants, receive the ordinances of the temple, and enjoy the blessings of exaltation." Yeah, what do you think about those?
So I will tell you, in Young Women's, every single Sunday we recited that. I can't remember if we recited it before or after. We all had this hanging on our walls. And fun fact, if anybody cares, virtue was definitely not there when I was a kid. I'd have to Google it. It had to have been added later on. Because I could recite it by heart. And then when you said good works and I went to say and integrity, and then you said integrity and virtue, and I was like, what is she saying? But that's the updated version. But yeah, no, like those sayings, it's like when you work at a job and they have like a catchphrase or slogan or something that's like beat in your head that you have to say while you're at work. Very much the same thing. Again, I can't remember if we started or ended on it, but I said that every single Sunday I went to church.
That's crazy to me. First of all, because those are long sentences and like a long list of things I'm supposed to do.
Yes.
So, yeah, Heather talks about how none of the young woman values spoke to her natural talents. Quote, "Shouldn't a sense of humor be somewhere on the list? Where was the value for a generous laugh? What about an affinity for memorizing lines from books and movies? Wasn't unsinkable ambition something to strive for? It felt meager to pin all of my hopes and dreams on the ability to make and keep sacred covenants or strengthen home and family." Which, yeah, this is the part where I get really confused because I know that marriage is a huge deal in the LDS church, especially for women. And being a homemaker is completely fine. Like, I have the utmost respect for stay-at-home moms because I personally could never do it. The sheer skills and nerves that you need just to do that.
It is a thankless job, and they work all like around the freaking clock. There's no days
if you're
off.
a stay-at-home mom or just like a mom in general, just like take a moment and pat yourself on the back. Like you're killing it. You're doing a great job.
Yes.
And I truly applaud just like women and mothers especially, because domestic work is legitimate work and it deserves to be compensated as such. But I digress. My issue is like when you take any other option off the table. You know, like my husband cooks and cleans and does our laundry. And if it was left up to me, we would be living in squalor. And the part that I get confused on is that wouldn't you want to set people up for successful marriages? If one day my husband came to me and genuinely said that he, didn't want to work from home anymore, or that, he got a super high paying job so that I didn't need to work anymore and I had to take on the domestic duties, I would struggle, yeah, but I would do it because I know he loves me and will be there for me when I fail. And I love him. So I would be willing to like swap those roles if it meant he could achieve his goals and his dreams. So my point is like, why not teach girls that their future husband should love them for them and not some vague virtues? Like, that's like teaching kids, or it's like teaching men or young boys that they should find a woman who is kind and nice and sings well. Like, those are so fucking vague. Like, that's most people. That's most just human beings.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like they don't set you up for a partnership. And I didn't see myself as a stay-at-home mom. Like, at no point in time did I want kids. Am I grateful for mine? Abso-freaking-lutely. Like, they're the best things that have ever happened to me. But that wasn't what I saw in my future, and I felt like I had to see it. Like, what was wrong with me? Like, why didn't I want to get married? Why didn't I want to have kids? Like, why didn't I want to do these typical things? And I had ambitions. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life, but I knew I wanted to do something, and that I was like meant to do something. And yeah, I just don't know why I was made to feel bad about that.
Yeah, that I just don't understand. Like, I feel like you're not setting up people for success if you're like, marry somebody who knows how to load a dishwasher. And it's like, most fucking people know how to load a dishwasher.
Yeah. And then you hear all these women who are like, okay, my husband works all day and then comes home and then sits on the couch. They're not helping with the kids. They're not tapping out the mom to be like, hey, have you showered today? In like a go take care of yourself kind of way, not in a you stink way.
Well, that's because like, domestic labor is like so undervalued. So like people that work are like, well, I've been at work all day, because they don't think about like domestic labor being also a fucking job.
I agree. And my husband's was the stay-at-home parent. And when I would come home from work, it was my turn to take over. It did not matter that I had worked 8, 10, or 12 hours. I was going to cook dinner, or I was going to snuggle with the kid when she was little. Like, I was going to take over some of the duties because he had been with this toddler all day. So like, why wouldn't I want to spend time with my kid? And 2, like, why wouldn't I want to help my partner that had been working and cleaning and changing diapers and doing all these things? Like, I wanted to help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So while on a young women's outing, Heather decides to crack open the church bus window and make hot dog jokes to other drivers. The youth leader sees this and snitches to her parents. And her parents are not thrilled about this. They're trying to raise a good Mormon daughter who is meek and demure. And then there's Heather, who's yelling out food-related sexual innuendos to random people on the road. Her dad sits her down and tells her, sometimes when we aren't feeling good about ourselves, we act out. Your mom and I think that you may be feeling insecure about your appearance and your weight, so you're acting obnoxious to get attention. We want you to start exercising daily. You and I can go on a walk every morning before breakfast, and it won't interfere with any of your activities. I'll wake you up at 5:30 a.m. and we can walk the parkway and get back in time to read scriptures with the family. If you lose a little weight, you'll feel better about yourself and you'll start to get noticed in positive ways. Beat my head against a fucking wall. What are your thoughts on that?
It is awful. Like, my jaw literally dropped. I have a daughter. I am a woman. Don't talk about weight like that, especially to an impressionable little girl. That's how eating disorders are born.
A teen girl. Yeah, in my notes, I wrote how to give your kid an eating disorder 101.
Yes. She's just trying to be funny. What does that have to do with weight?
Yeah, like,
crazy.
Let her make the hot dog joke. Fuck it. It's probably funny.
It probably was fun. She's pretty funny. So I imagine that it was.
And And also just like, okay, waking up a teenager at 5:30 a.m. to go on a walk, like absolutely not. And
well, also as a teenager, when you're in high school, you have to go to seminary. So you're already going to a church class an hour before school starts. So that means he's waking her up an hour before seminary to walk, to go to seminary, then to go to 8 hours of school. What the she was probably like, what, 14, 15 at the time? That's stupid.
yeah, like absolutely fucking not. Like I would not be having this. And then like also, okay, telling your teenage girl, your teenage daughter, that if they lose weight, they'll be noticed in positive ways is foul. You are basically telling your young daughter that if she were more physically appealing, people will notice her body. How is that positive?
And as a dad, why do you want people noticing your teenage daughter's body in a positive way like that? Like positive way, I don't think means what we think when we say positive way. Like, I don't know. That whole conversation feels really gross and very inappropriate.
Yeah, and I think people liking her because she's funny and outgoing is more positive than her being thin.
And she's not fat.
Yeah, she's not fat.
No, she has wider shoulders, which I guess could like give that perception. But when you look at her, she has a gorgeous body. People pay for that body.
I will say this, that as a big girl about town, the reason I really do like Heather is that she is like not the typical housewife body type. She's not big by any means, and she never has been big on the show, but she is like bigger than other housewives. Not anymore because she's been on Ozempic, so she's like lost a lot of weight. But
she
I'm
was
like,
oh,
we lost another one.
Right? She was like a normal representation of a woman on the screen.
She just had a very like normal body. It was a really good body. Don't get me wrong. Like she had a flat stomach.
Know.
And great tits.
No. After 3 kids, I mean, maybe she got work done. I would like a flat stomach. I cannot afford to get work done.
So Heather is living in Denver, being a completely boy-crazed teen girl, when she realizes that she is different from her other friends. They don't have strict guidelines. They are allowed to watch more adult programming. They can go out on dates with boys. Heather starts to feel like she's a bad seed. She says that she didn't really have anyone to turn to in the church because in the Mormon community, it's pretty small, especially in Denver. So she prays every day that God will help her. And suddenly her parents deliver the news that they're moving to Salt Lake City. And she views this as God answering her prayers and giving her a clean slate. She gets to Utah and, shocker, continues to be a normal-ass teen girl. Her dad calls a friend of his and inquires as to who Heather should be friends with, i.e. who's Mormon and who isn't. Heather writes, "A lot of my friends were just living double lives and keeping their sins secret. And I mean, yeah, duh, that's what every teenage girl does." The realization further muddles Heather's worldview with her faith and how she's supposed to live her life. She says that it was getting harder to decide right and wrong within the guidelines of the church. And something she has to do with the church as a teenager is have bishop interviews, which are essentially a one-on-one interview with a bishop where you discuss the law of chastity and you tell them if you've broken it or not. For the boys, the bishops will do check-ins where they'll ask if they had masturbated that day. And I wrote in my notes, that's fucking weird. And I do want to give a gentle trigger warning just for like weird, uncomfortable boundary crossing stuff. If that you're not into that, I mean, I hope you're not into it, but if you can just skip it. I'll put some timestamps in the description. So Heather is pretty innocent, and while she has kissed some boys, I don't think she was like sex crazed at this point. Her bishop meetings are pretty cut and dry. They don't really pry into, her life too much until one day the bishop asks her if she touches herself. And this confuses Heather because she doesn't know like what he means. So she doesn't know the right answer to give. She's thinking like, of course I touch myself. I touch like my arms and my hair, my face. She's not like thinking like touches herself. She doesn't know.
Like I shower and wash my hair.
Yeah.
Like what are you
exactly.
talking
She's
about?
like confused.
Yeah.
And the bishop keeps pushing the issue. And he's someone in her community that she has trust with and believes that he has this divine connection to God. So she tells him that she doesn't know what she needs to tell him and what she can clear up on her own. He asks her if there was penetrative sex, and she says no, but that she had participated in petting. He then proceeds to ask her for more details, like did she initiate it? Did anyone orgasm? How many times, etc. And to this, I just want to pause and say, FBI, you need to track down this man and check his hard drive because this is inappropriate. And if you absolutely have to do this for whatever reason, it should not be with a grown man in a position of power questioning a teenage girl. It feels like he's getting off on it, honestly. And this is just my conjecture, allegedly. Like I don't know, I wasn't there, but it doesn't feel or sound good. And it sounds like super awkward, but also just gross. Like it sounds dirty. Like they should be doing this with women. I feel like another woman.
Okay, so looking back, all my meetings with bishops, I'm like, I was a vulnerable teenage girl who was going into a grown man's office to ask very personal questions. And no, I don't ever remember being asked. That's like next level shit. That is definitely something that, anybody should look into. But in hindsight, looking back, like, there were no women in here. Why wasn't I talking to like my female young women's leaders? Like, why was I talking to a 40, 50-year-old man alone as a 14, 15, 16-year-old girl? That just seems so gross and not okay.
Yeah, and if you look at any like marketing ad campaign, you will clearly see that adult men do not understand what teen girls are like or what they want. Like genuinely.
No, they really, really don't. It would have made so much more sense for like the young women's president to sit down and have those conversations with me. And then if I had done something that had like maybe crossed a line or I could have possibly gotten like in trouble for, then she would go to the bishop and like we would talk together. Or like my mom would be there or but there was him and me, the two of us.
If you absolutely have to have these conversations, it should be with another former teenage woman, or teenage girl,
Yeah, absolutely.
So Heather makes it through high school and she receives a full ride scholarship to the University of Utah for piano playing. And I did not know that she was talented with the piano. I don't think this ever comes up on the show, or if it does, it's just very quick. But I thought that was really cool and interesting that she got a full ride scholarship for playing the piano. She has to be pretty talented.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah, as Heather would put, it was a nice surprise. However, despite having a full ride to college, her parents really want her to go to BYU, or Brigham Young University, for those not in the know. They tell her that if she can get into BYU, they'll pay her the equivalent of her scholarship plus her first year. So Heather goes to BYU. And I always knew that BYU was the Mormon school. I think most people don't go there if they're not Mormon. And I assume it's a decent college because, I mean, it's got to be a decent college.
I think it's a pretty good college, but you're correct. Yeah. Like, it's just, I've never known a non-Mormon to go there. I'm sure that happens, like maybe football players, because they have a great football team.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I just assume people went there to stay within the Mormon community and also get like a good education. What I never considered is that people go there to meet their future spouse.
Yep. They got their MRS degree.
Okay, you made this joke last time, and this is around the point where like all the ciders were hitting me, and it just like I didn't clock it until I was editing, and I was like, "Yo, this is such a good fucking joke."
I had to make sure I said it again.
Yes, I was like sitting on pins and needles, like hoping because it's such a good joke. They're MRS, but
oh my god.
Yeah, I I mean, I guess it makes sense. If you want to marry a nice Mormon boy or girl, you would have a pretty good shot of finding somebody at BYU. And this is something Heather mentions, and she talks about how it's where her sister and her husband met, and her sister dropped out to get married.
Yep. Which doesn't make any sense to me, but if you go like on a Saturday, the temple literally just like has a line of couples around the corner like waiting to get married in the temple. It's freaking insane.
Yeah, that is crazy. But
yeah,
while in college, Heather starts her own business selling earrings. She calls it Steelhead Designs. She starts selling it in one of her friend's store, and it turns into this wildly successful business. She ends up taking this small jewelry business and gets a contract with Nordstrom, which that's pretty huge.
That's a big deal. That's a big store.
Yeah, that's like a nice department, like luxury store. It's pretty impressive.
Rich people shop there.
Yeah. One of her professors recommends her for the Entrepreneur Student of the Year. She doesn't win, but she does get the honorable mention placement. And she loses to the guy who came up with 1-800 contacts, which I guess if you're going to lose to somebody, it might as well be 1-800 contacts.
Yeah, that's, I would be okay losing to that guy. Like, he's huge. Like, people still use that.
It's just like crazy to me that's who she lost to. She writes, but no one cared. No one mentioned it. Being a businesswoman was not a mark of success in my family nor my community. If I brought it up, they just asked if I was dating anyone and changed the subject.
That's not okay.
And like, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Gay, she lost to the 1-800 contacts guy. Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Oh my God. No, that's so shitty.
Yeah, and like Heather, this really should break my heart because Heather is clearly a go-getter, and not just a go-getter, but an overachiever. And she's going to put her all into anything she signs her name to, and she's not going to stop until she's gone as far as she possibly can. And repeatedly, her successes are ignored. And I really do admire this part of her personality, and I wish I had an iota of that. It's just like, I think there is something very admirable about not stopping. Just you're going to keep going. You're going to keep pushing. You're going to make it big. You're going to make it big.
Yeah. You have zero support, obviously. And you're still like, screw it. I'm just going to keep working hard because I'm really good and I'm talented and I got this.
Yeah. And so while she's in college, she is also working at a tanning salon and she really loves it. She's really good at it and she ends up getting a manager position there. This is where she meets a man, and she might be embellishing a bit here, but I do not care because this chapter is so hot and sexy. She meets a man named John Barnes. He, that may or may not be his real name. I don't know. Don't care. He's an older man who comes in and starts flirting with her. He's taken in, and he's impressed by her selling skills. He asks her out. She agrees. He takes her out on the sexiest date. They go to the Tree Room, which is a fancy restaurant built around this massive tree. Then he orders a glass of drambuie. And he asks her to smell it and starts explaining what drambuie is. He offers her a sip. She takes it. And he asks her if she can taste the secret ingredient. She says no. And he dips her finger into his drink and then like licks her finger and says the secret ingredient is Heather.
Okay. That's hot.
Yeah.
That's a good line.
Yeah, they end up making out in his Mercedes-Benz because, like, of course they do.
They should.
Yeah, and Heather has a really nice time. She really likes this guy. And he spent the date laughing at her jokes, which I presume were all hot dog jokes. And he's really intrigued by her. When she gets back to her apartment, her friends heavily discourage her from seeing him because he's not Mormon and she's not going to marry him. So what even is the point? So she ends up rejecting his calls and never sees him again.
That's so lame. It's okay to date and have fun. Good God.
I know. I really was like having this conversation the other day with some of my employees because everyone I work with is very young. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about like, what's the point of dating if you're not dating to get married? And I was like, because dating's fun and like getting to know another person is fun. And if you're only dating to get married, then you'll probably marry somebody, the first person who asks, not really considering if
you're
this
gonna
person is
settle
right for you or not.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're willing to overlook a lot of red flags. Versus if you're just dating to date because it's fun and like you're young and hot, it just goes a lot better. And if you end up marrying that person, sure, great, wonderful. If not,
right.
you had
And
a good time.
I feel like it would be a natural transition if you meet somebody and you guys are having a lot of fun and you enjoy traveling and you enjoy, things. And then you kind of migrate into this whole, oh my God, we're in a relationship. And then you move from there. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You shouldn't force it. If you have to force it, it's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And like, if that's the finish line that you're trying to reach, you're going to get there by any means necessary. And you're not really going to deviate from the path.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you want to date to get married, that's like fine. Just, I don't know, be smart about it.
I did not want to get married with every fiber of my being, and I am married. So just throwing that out there, ladies.
No, same. I definitely did not mean to marry Josh. We always joke that we like just accidentally got married. Like really, we just kind of fell into it.
I feel like those are the best relationships. And I just love pictures of you and Josh on social media. Like y'all just always look like you're having the best time.
Yeah, sometimes we are. No, we never. So as graduation looms near, Heather starts to panic. She writes, "The writing was on the wall. My sister Jenny had gotten married at 19, and yet there I was at 21. I had a humanities degree from BYU, a managerial position at a local tanning salon, and a burgeoning business, but I felt like a complete loser because I wasn't married. I had run out of options. I had never had anyone in my life encourage me to do anything past this point. No mention of an advanced degree, no mention of an actual career, no mention of travel or adventure or a gap year. The map only led to marriage, so I didn't know where to go to next." What are your thoughts?
That just breaks my heart. And it's like in the church, if you're not like chosen by a certain age, you're just going to be this spinster. And I mean, what year do we live in? It's not the 1800s. We don't have to get married. And the fact that she's 21. Like,
it reminds me, it reminds me of the Broad City quote that Alana says, "Lincoln, I'm 27. What am I, a child bride?" It's like, yeah, like Heather, you're 21. You're a child. Like, it's fine.
Yes. I think back, I started dating my husband when I was 21. And I look back and like, I was such a different person then. And I'm 41 now. Like, you're going to be with that person for the rest of your life. It's okay to wait. Like, just a few years. Like, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, my mom always told me to not get married till my 30s. And I didn't. I got married when I was 30. And
nice.
10 out of 10 would recommend. Wait until you're 30.
I was 27, I think, when I got married. I eloped. And I still sometimes look back and think, oh, God, that was so young. It really wasn't ever.
Yeah, I want to tell 21-year-old Heather that all the things she listed are accomplishments and she should be proud of them. And I just can't imagine someone like Heather, who is super goal-oriented, having this realization that she's run out of road. And like, you haven't run out of road. It's fine.
No,
You have all you have is road at 21.
I know. Whenever you hear young people and they're like, oh, I just don't know what I want to do. I just want to shake them. And I want to be like, go move to another state, go travel, go do whatever the hell you want. You have your whole life to be a quote unquote normal person that's married with 2.5 kids.
Yeah, and you're 21. Like, you're not really supposed to know what you want to do anyways. It's fine. Like, walk around not having a clue. It's fine. It's totally fine. Everybody else is doing it. I promise you. I'm 32 and I still do it. I'm just better at hiding it. That's the secret.
Like, I'm still every day trying to like, who am I as a person? Like, who do I want to be in society? Like, who do I want to be when I grow up? Like, I'm constantly having those thoughts and growing as a person. And again, I'm 41 years old. I don't ever want to not be like, I know who I am and I'm never going to grow again. Like, that would be so lame.
I told one of my friends who is a few years younger than me, she was like, I just like can't wait until, I'm at the age where I have my shit together like you, Dacey. And I just started laughing because I was like, girl, I do not have my shit together. I was like, here's a secret. Truly, this is the secret to life. Nobody has their shit together. You just get better at dealing with it. Like, honestly.
Absolutely. And you get better at hiding it. And I think one of the reasons that I have a little bit of road rage is because I don't know how to deal with not having my shit together. And like a car will cut me off. And I have this big overreaction. And I think that overreaction is just like all those emotions that I push down to seem like a normal person. They come out when I'm driving. So there you go.
One of her roommates, Heather's roommates, tells her that her mom offered to pay for Heather to go on a mission. So Heather goes on a mission. She's waiting for her calling or the location her mission will be in. And her friend gets hers shortly before Heather does. Heather's friend is called to serve in Anaheim, California. This really stresses Heather out because she wants something more because of course she does. I mean, good.
Right.
Good for her.
Right. She's Heather.
She says that she used to read, but she says that she asked to read her calling in private because if it was somewhere lame, she could say that she was having doubts and she could pull out. She opens her envelope and her calling is in Marseille, France.
Nice.
Yeah, she's elated. I mean, it's France, fucking France.
Right?
Similarly to her family moving to Salt Lake City, she views this as God answering her prayers. She writes, "At that moment, I knew the church was true. God knew me. He knew that I would struggle if I was somewhere lame, and he gave me the Côte d'Azur, the French Riviera. God is good. The church is true. You made the right choice." So this mission and then her calling just really affirms her devotion to the church.
So I find this so funny when people are of the mind God is good and everything is true because things are going a positive way and and I'm not trying to diminish her going to France. That is very freaking cool. My sister went to England and I thought that was my mom's from Ireland. And so it was just right up her alley to go over there. And we got to go over there and pick her up and go to Ireland and do all these really cool things. So I'm not trying to take away from that. But you can't sit there and be like, oh, this is true. God is good. Only because something positive happened to you.
Yeah. That's a part that a lot of people miss.
Yes.
Do we forget that Jesus was brutally nailed and murdered?
Right. What the fuck? And also when people are like, everything happens for a reason. And I'm like, there's a genocide happening right now. What are you talking about? Just saying.
But that brings us to part 2, Bad Missionary. I will say that, not that this, this was my least favorite part of the book. I did feel like this one is just not of a nothing burger. It's just, I feel like it was a lot of words for a few things that happened.
Right.
In my opinion. I'm sure, obviously, if she put them in the memoir, they were important to her. I just didn't get that much on it, but except for the beginning half of it. So before Heather can go on her mission, she has to go through the temple. And I grew up in church, so I know what a temple is, but this shit really confused me. I know that a temple is basically a church. So when Heather described what going through the temple meant, it really blew my mind. And I'm also confused because it is so secretive. What do people who haven't gone through the temple do on normal church days? Are they in a separate room? Do they do this ritual only on special occasions?
Okay, so it's a special occasions thing. You don't go to the temple to go to church. You go to the temple for multiple reasons. And it is very, very sacred. You have to have meetings with your bishop to make sure that you are, quote unquote, worthy to enter. And there are levels that even I don't know, because even though I grew up Mormon, I was allowed to go into kind of this first section where we did baptisms of the dead, where we baptized. My God.
No, I know all about the baptism of the dead.
Yeah, it's so just Google it.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm gonna, because I did listen to the last pod. If you really want a deep dive into Mormonism, You won't find it here, but I do recommend going and listening to the last pod's like 5-part series on the Church of Mormonism. It's really great. But baptisms of the dead, from my understanding, from the last podcast on the left, is that it's basically baptisms for people that have previously passed away, obviously, like Marilyn Monroe or Prince. And it's giving them the option to go to Mormon heaven posthumously.
Yes. They are saving their souls. So that is a huge reason why Mormons are into genealogy, is so they can gather those names and then they go in and they baptize in the name of the dead. And then you have to be confirmed, or it's not like legit. So those are the only parts that I'm aware of. When my sisters got married, I was not allowed inside the temple. When my nephew got married, I was not allowed. I'm allowed on the property, but I'm not allowed inside because it's super, super sacred.
Yeah, that part really blew my mind because I knew every nook and cranny in the church I grew up in. So it's just like, there was never a place that was unrestricted.
No, this is definitely something like you have to work to, and you have to be a certain age, or you have to either be going on a mission or be getting married to get like basically all the information.
Yeah, Heather starts this chapter with a really funny quip. She's talking about the first time she found her mother's temple clothes. She was searching for hidden Christmas gifts and stumbled upon a tiny suitcase shoved in the back of her mother's closet. And she writes, "I still wholeheartedly believed in Santa Claus. His lore was nothing compared to with the leap of logic needed to justify Joseph Smith's first vision." And I just thought that was really funny. Like, yeah, Santa Claus probably is easier to believe than Joseph Smith's first vision. Joseph Smith lore is like a lot. And it's kind of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe where you need 18 movies, 17 sideshows on Disney Plus and comic books, and then also a bunch of novels. And then Santa Claus is like, you just can get it from a Coke ad.
Yeah, no, there were times when I was growing up and I would hear things and I would be like, okay, interesting. And then South Park came out. I was like in middle school. And
I forgot they had. because they wrote the Book of Mormon. Yeah,
they did. They did
Parker
the Broadway play.
I always forget that.
So they did an episode on the Book of Mormon, and was it Martin? What's his face is over the hat and they sing "dum dum dum dum" because they're reading the words in a hat, and like people are so. Oh, didn't I just lecture us on like not making fun of things we don't understand? Either way, I
feel like, okay, listen, and I say this, okay, once again, if you are angry, you can come for me, it's fine. I feel like if you are Mormon, I mean, you have to laugh because it is kind of goofy. Like, it just is goofy.
It is. When you really like get into it, Martin Harris. His name is Martin Harris. When you really get into the history of it and you find the founders and how like I think it was Martin Harris's wife, like burned or threw away some of the pages.
Broke them. Yeah, she threw them away because she was like, this guy is
just dumb.
A goober. She was like, Joseph Smith is not, what are we doing here? The only person that made sense in the whole lore.
I always did have a soft spot for her where I was like, challenge things, go bitch. Was they wouldn't go back and retranslate the script because they were like, oh, they're going to come and they're going to like forge it and they're going to say that we're liars, essentially. Yeah. And I was always like, what? What? Doesn't make any sense.
Heather talks about finding the suitcase and seeing what's inside. She knew that she had seen something she wasn't supposed to. I guess it's like similar to opening your mom's bedside drawer and finding her vibrator for the first time. You're like, I don't know what this is, but like, I know that I shouldn't be seeing this. It's a few years later. Yeah, you're like, I don't know what's happening here, but like, I know that I was not supposed to see this. A few years later, her family is at a parade, and a group of ex-Mormon protesters show up in their temple garb, and her dad grabs Heather and turns her away and tells her not to look. Heather is really confused by this and tries to get more contact context. And her dad just tells her that they're mocking something sacred and symbolic. And I do want to say that I'm pretty sure the parade that they're at is Pioneer Day. And there is the non-Mormon version that happens on the same day, and it's Pie and Beer Day.
Stop.
Which sounds so fun. Yeah, it's like a real thing.
I need to go to that. Oh, yeah. Pioneer Day is a really big deal. And like we even went to Nauvoo and like where people still dress up as pioneers. And they like that's where originally Mormons settled before they went to Salt Lake City because they got like chased off. And doing the whole pioneer thing is like that is some hardcore Mormon shit right there. I was very into it because I like dressing up.
And Pie and Beer Day just sounds really fun. So
that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I like if we ever just want to celebrate that with just the two of us, like I'm down.
Hell yeah, I'll go to Pie and Beer Day. Let's do it. She writes, I must have understood on some level that the ridiculousness of their clothes mocked something we believed in, but I assumed their outfits were an exaggeration, a parody. Never did I entertain the thought that they were dressed exactly like I would be every time I went through the temple. And I did Google them, once again, looked on the Exmo subreddit. And they do look really ridiculous.
When you showed me the first time before we had to re-record this amazing episode, I never even thought to Google it, or I never even thought to look because it was so sacred. It meant so much to my family that it was never a thought to look at it. Looking at it, it feels very Adam and Eve-ish.
Yeah, because, it is like a baker's cap. It's like a baker's cap. And then there's the aprons that go over it that are like black and green, I want to say. And it has like the leaves embroidered onto it. It's a very frumpy. I will say it is not flattering.
No, it's not. And I don't understand what the green thing is supposed to be. And I just didn't understand it. And again, I'm not going to, I don't want to make fun of it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can go to hell. It's okay. But if you want to see what they look like, definitely Google them. The pictures are out there.
And it is unique.
Take a look for yourself. Yeah,
but I do understand.
They're
unique. We're going to just say that. And I do understand why the dad had the reaction he did, because it was very much beaten my head as a kid that this was sacred. And if something is sacred, then you just don't want people walking around in it. That would be weird.
Honestly, okay. But the thing is, to me, it comes off as back to the barbecue thing and not telling people that it's a religious event until they're already there. It's now you're in too deep. It's kind of like with Scientology where they don't tell you about the weird alien shit until you are thousands and thousands of dollars into the hole. And you're already committed to it. What are you going to do? You get to go through the temple and then you realize this is kind of silly. You can't just be this is dumb. I'm not doing this. Because then what?
Yeah, because I feel like if you're at that point, you are committed. You're into it. This is your everything. This is your all. I don't know why you would walk in. I mean, there's some very silly things that I believe in, but I can look on the outside and be like, oh yeah, no, I can tell why people think this is ridiculous. Some of the things I'm into crystals. I get why people think that's weird. I get why people think it's hokey. It doesn't
you feel
bother
comfortable
me.
enough I do kind of believe in crystals.
Yeah. Because
it's not something that you become someone's friend and wait years and years and years. And then you're also, have you put rose quartz in between your tits?
Right. Because that shit is amazing. Actually, I should try that. But no, I would never try to friend somebody to convert over to my Sager house and collect crystals and, eat from the earth kind of mentality that this little journey I've been going on.
Yeah. So before Heather can go into the temple, she has to take a prep class.
Yeah.
And they tell her that the class could take 6 weeks, but it ends up only taking a few hours, which red flag number 1 for me, at least.
Right.
Heather makes a joke that as long as she learns about the green aprons, she's good. And the teachers from the class give her a death stare. They tell her it's deeply offensive to discuss the temple clothes outside of the temple. And this part frustrated me so bad because I am a rule follower. I love a checklist. And if you give me instructions, I will do them to the T. And while in this class, the teachers keep talking about how important the temple ordinances are, but they aren't telling her what the temple ordinances are. They won't tell her what going through the temple even means. And instead they just talk about Adam and Eve. And oh God, I was just that is really annoying too. That's so frustrating.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. If I'm going to take a class on something, you better give me all the information. I should be really comfortable and confident in my surroundings when I go in there. But maybe they're trying to prevent people from gathering the information and faking it and then exploiting them maybe.
I think it goes back to because it is kind of goofy. So if they tell you it's gonna be goofy, then
and they want you to be
you
in
probably
that
aren't
moment.
Gonna do it. Yeah. So
it feels very culty. Very culty.
It is. It's giving whiffs of a cult.
Yes.
I would say. It's time for Heather, who has been taught nothing in the prep class, which, so frustrating, to go through the temple. So her mom gives her breath mints to prepare her. And then once again, just doesn't tell her what the breath mints are for. Can we just start telling people things? Dear God. And the breath mints take up just all the room in her brain. She's thinking does she have to kiss somebody? Are they going to breathe in each other's faces? What could these breath mints possibly be for? Which what the fuck? You don't just think, you don't just hand somebody a pack of breath mints and be best of luck.
And you're you've never given me a breath mint in my life.
Yeah. It's
what are you doing?
Yeah. And also her friends are oh yeah, that have already been through the temple, or oh yeah, the breath mints are a good idea, but then just aren't telling her what the breath mints are for.
I would be going nuts. I'd be take me to this damn temple right now. We're gonna figure this shit out.
Yeah. So before she can go through with the endowment, she has to be washed and anointed. And honestly, this part does sound really nice. It does. I will say this is the least goofy part. I thought it sounded really empowering. She has to strip naked while 2 other women, thank God, finally in an appropriate setting, anoint her head, ears, eyes, nose, lips, neck, back, her breast, her hip bones, and right above her vagina. And I did really love in the book when she talks about the lady who's an elderly lady anointing her breast. She just in the book writes, "Oop, touched a nipple on that one." And it's just so funny. She says that as the ritual progressed, any weirdness or awkwardness faded away because she started to feel really warm and safe and cared for.
Oh.
She didn't think anything weird about it because it felt spiritual and it felt like something humans couldn't come up with because it is kind of so weird. So it had to have been divine. She writes, "I had received plenty of priesthood blessings from men throughout my life, but the washings and anointings I received from these women felt different. I didn't question their authority or lack of priesthood power. I didn't feel less than or oppressed. I felt important. I felt valued, and I felt fortified with the strength of God." And yeah, it does sound really nice. This sounds empowering.
I know.
And it sounds intimate.
I know. I love stories about in mostly fables and the women and the way that they are with each other and cleansing each other. It feels very intimate when us women do things like that with each other. I think we're soft and we're loving and caring in nature that even though I was naked and vulnerable, I feel it would feel really comforting. It was meant to happen.
Yeah, and they're anointing really intimate parts of your body and blessing them. I just feel that sounds really nice,
Yeah. Yeah. That feels really beautiful.
And if you think that we're going to stay in this nice, lovely, empowering bubble, wrong. You're absolutely wrong. We're going to jump off the rails and go to Cuckoo Town. Because after the anointings, Heather's really excited because she's thinking she's going to have this whole spiritual experience and feel really close to God because she's been feeling close to God with the anointings and washings. So her mom helps her correctly put on her temple garb, because nobody's fucking told her how to in the prep class. That was supposed to take 6 weeks and took 3 hours. And they go in for the ritual, and they begin by having a film play over the loudspeakers the details of the story of creation. And I did make a note because I'm somebody who has studied apologetics and biblical worldview, and I do know the Bible, and anything I don't know, I will look up and research and like find out because I'm just a nerd. Heather writes, Eve knows the rules, but is deceived by Satan, who convinces her that partaking of the fruit is the only way she can progress with Adam. It is the only way she can bear children. It is the only way civilization can come to pass. And like, that's just like biblically, that's not true. And I don't know if this is something Mormon, they teach in the Mormon church, but like, that's not true. That's not why Eve does it.
I genuinely don't remember learning a lot about Adam and Eve when I was a kid. I feel not that we didn't talk about them, but we didn't learn a lot about the Bible. We studied a lot more of the Book of Mormon. So my biblical knowledge is very limited. Yeah, I feel like there are still some things in the Book of Mormon that I could speak confidently on 20 years after leaving the church, because that's how much we studied it.
Yeah. So yeah, Eve partaking of the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it doesn't have anything to do with her relationship to Adam. It doesn't have anything to do with her having children. And her having children is actually like the punishment for her sin. And it doesn't have anything to do with the progress of civilization. Adam and Eve are chilling in the Garden of Eden. They're literally in paradise. You know, what the fuck? Like, they don't even know what civilization is. So
Right.
why do they care about that? And I just wanted to make a note because I really hate that the story of Eve like already gets used against women, and to twist it and interpret it in a way that allows for like even more misogyny is just a line too far.
Yeah.
And I don't want any Bible misinformation out there. We have enough already.
So what was the apple for? Wasn't it knowledge?
Yeah, it's the knowledge of good and evil, because at the time there was no sin. So there wasn't like right or wrong. Basically, the only wrong that Adam and Eve could do is eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And Eve eats it because the serpent tells her you can have like godlike knowledge, basically. So it's just so she can have God's brain, which is a lie, because all she learns is like what's right and what's wrong.
So the serpent was Satan, and he was trying to
the serpent
tempt
is
her?
Satan in the book, in the Bible.
So what was the motivation for? I know we're sidetracking. I'm just curious now. What was the purpose then? Why would he make them eat the fruit?
Who, Satan?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't make them eat the fruit. They have the choice.
Why would he tempt them to eat the fruit then? Like, what was his motivation in all of it?
To get them kicked out of Eden and to prove that God made a mistake. Except that God didn't make a mistake, because he gave them the one thing that they could do wrong is to earn the ability to know right from wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, because like obviously, because a lot of people will be like, oh, well, like, why did he even put the tree there? If God is so like omnipotent, why did he even put the tree there? Give him the ability to sin. And it's like, one, because we have free will, but like that's a whole other thing. And two, because like he knew that humanity was like eventually going to disobey him. So might as well equip us with the knowledge of what is right and what is wrong.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So anyways, Heather is going through the ritual, and she says that it doesn't feel divine. She writes, it feels fucking weird. However, there's like a secret handshake that she needs to know to get into God's treehouse. Then like, who is she to question it, you know? And which again, like biblically, it's just like not how that works. There's not a secret handshake, but you know, go ahead, girl.
I really hope that there is, though, because I'm down for that.
I mean, I'm sure that you can like make one. I don't think God. Yeah. She's trying to follow everyone else because she hasn't been taught or told what to do. Once again, because nobody prepared her in the prep class. And she looks across the aisle for her dad. She's staring and she's trying to make eye contact with him. And she just wants some assurance because this all feels silly and weird. And instead, he keeps his eyes forward and focused. Like he is locked into this shit. Like he is not paying attention for her. And in my notes, I wrote, this feels like fucked up follow the leader, because it is fucked up follow the leader. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, if you don't know what you're doing, well, they're going to guess who looks like an idiot? You, with your breath mints that you don't know what they're for.
And why wouldn't he look at her just for comfort? I mean, that's her dad. Like, just look over at your daughter to be like, hey, we're good. Like, this is the right thing that's happening right now, you know?
Yeah. So now it's time for her to approach the veil. She has to give very specific answers to questions and do very specific hand motions that she's tried to pick up from the women in the line before her. Behind the veil is a man who I guess is supposed to represent God. And the whole ordeal is practicing the secret heaven treehouse handshake. I'm not entirely sure. She messes up one of the answers, but they let her correct herself. She receives her secret name, and that's that. And also the breath mints are because when you're at the veil, you're like face, like nose to nose with the person through the curtain.
That's like Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, it's like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, except the man is supposed to be God in this scenario, and you have to do a bunch of weird shit to him and tell him secret answers.
And you get a secret name, like they're in the FBI or CIA or something.
Yeah, and I will say she does not say what her secret name is, and I did not go looking for it because if she didn't put it in the book, that is something private to her.
Right.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really want to bog anybody down in the details of the ritual. I suggest if anybody's curious to read it because it is really interesting and it's in Heather's perspective. So it is good. It is my favorite part of this section of the book. Heather writes, everyone was in on this secret, and not just my family and friends, everyone I knew and trusted. The rest of my friends and relatives and ward members had walked through those doors as unaware as me and had said nothing afterward, as if ancient blood oaths and rituals were as commonplace as the blessing the food at dinner time. Jesus. And it's like, yeah, like that's so weird that everybody's keeping this giant ass secret.
Yeah, like you're not even kind of giving your friend or family member the heads up. Like, hey, you're not going to get any information in this class. So let me tell you one thing. Like why, like the breath mints, or that you're going to be naked in front of a woman or something. I don't know. like tell me something.
Yeah. So the more I thought about it, the more I realized, at least in my opinion, it's just another method of control. You throw someone into a bizarre situation and you expect them to play this game of follow the leader. What else are they supposed to do? And the only thing I could compare this to in my life is when one of my friends invited me to Zumba, I finally caved and went. And if you just go to a Zumba class, they don't tell you how to do the dance moves. They throw on that fucking music and they get on their little step stools and they're doing it. And everybody is in sync and everybody's doing so well. And then you're just there, trying to figure it out. And that's just all it reminded me of. I was like, so the reason you keep coming back to Zumba is so that you can know the dance moves and you're no longer this person.
And you feel more confident because you're like, oh, I know this song. And I love Zumba. But I do feel really ridiculous when I haven't been in 2 years and I'm like, I don't know anything that's happening. And I stand in the back.
Yeah. So you feel so out of place. But
yeah.
You keep coming back because you want to learn the dance moves. You want to be the cool Zumba girl.
Right. And everyone's really nice and everyone's welcoming. And you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be here, you know?
Yeah. While on her mission in France, they're obviously expected to proselytize and convert people. They learn about this new method of sharing the word in a conference. The method is called the 1 minute rule. Essentially, the second somebody opens the door for the missionaries, they're supposed to drop to their knees and start praying. And this is just it's the same thing. It's the ritual. And it's another form of manipulation. And nobody wants to be the odd man out. So like if somebody lets you into their home and then you just immediately drop to your knees and start praying, most people aren't going to want to be rude. So they're probably just going to go along with you because one, they're going to think you're fucking insane and be like, well, might as well just like go along with this or these people might stab me.
Right.
Or like they're just going to go along with it out of politeness.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I would be like, oh, okay, I guess this is what's happening. This is why I don't invite people into my house.
Because they might drop to their knees and start praying.
Like, what the fuck?
I thought that I was just like, oh, this is just so weird and messed up. Like, don't do this to people.
No.
While on her mission, Heather helps this woman who has a disabled son. The whole situation is like really horrific, and I don't want to get into it. If you are interested, definitely read the book, read the chapters that she talks about this in. But while doing the service for the woman, Heather has these thoughts. I would rather have wandered the earth barefoot and begging than be a single mother. There is no example in the church to cling to, no idol to look up to, no model to direct questions to. It was the opposite of the future I pictured for myself, where my husband doted on me and where most of my kids got good grades and maybe told the occasional hot dog joke. And I want to say, like, the woman that she's helping with the disabled son is a single mother, and her son is severely, severely disabled. And the mother is like the main caretaker for her son.
Yeah. I think that it's really sad that she thinks the worst thing that you can be is a single mom. You know, I was raised by a single mom. My dad left when I was 10 years old, and my sisters and I were still in the house. My brothers were older and had moved out. And I felt like there was a lot of single moms in our ward. There was actually like a singles like branch, and they would hang out, and, you know, we'd have these big Thanksgiving dinners, and there was always something going on. And I felt like there was a lot of support. I never felt like we were looked down on or the odd man out for having a single mom. So like, that's just kind of heartbreaking that was her takeaway. And I get the mom had a son with a disability. She definitely could have used like help and a partner or a tribe or whatever you want to call it. But just that mentality that like a single mom is just like the worst thing that could happen to you. That's really sad.
Yeah. That did really break my heart, that like the worst thing Heather could be is a single mother. And it's like, she's in this really horrific situation when she's thinking these things. And it's like, that's like your takeaway from the situation.
Yeah. Not like, oh my gosh, this happened with the disability, that like, that's the part she's upset about. It's the single mom part. Like, I don't know. That's just really sad. That just shows you like how indoctrinated she is on marriage, being a wife. That's your only duty. Yeah.
And because Heather is an overachiever and she's a savvy sales lady, she's really good at converting people. She writes, however, she does write, I wasn't loving the people of France like I wanted to. I always had an agenda. I couldn't just accept and enjoy them where they were in their lives. I felt compelled to push for baptisms, to push for reactivation, to push for them to pay tithing when I never should have pushed them to do anything at all. I couldn't be their friend without always having a wonderful surprise. And like, I know we had our little like soapbox moment earlier, but like this part of the book was the turning point for me personally. On one hand, it kind of felt like I was like getting an apology I'm never going to get. And on the other hand, it made me realize that like Mormons do get othered a lot. Like, you can be Baptist or Presbyterian or Lutheran or Methodist, Pentecostal, whatever, but you're not Mormon, you know? And it's like, but in reality, Mormons are out here doing the exact same shit that every other church does. Like this mindset of not loving people where they are and like always having a quote unquote wonderful surprise. Almost every single person in the church does this.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is not unique to that church at all.
Heather's mission passes and she's returning home. She wants to move to DC with some of her friends, but her parents strongly discourage it. And that is Washington, DC. I understand that I am Southern. And when I was listening to this back, I it did not sound like I was saying D.C. District of Columbia is where she wants to move to. Her dad tells her,
funny.
I don't think that's a great plan for you. In DC, everyone's kind of single and career-minded, and you really need to focus on finding a guy and getting married and, settling down. So Heather does not move to DC. She moves to Huntington Beach, California, which I guess is like Mormon single city. I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. I mean, it's a beach town, so like I'm down.
Yeah, just like. Also, I fucking love DC. I probably wouldn't want to live there, but I always tell people this, like, DC is my favorite city because it represents everything that America should be. It's completely walkable. You can get there by train, or at least one where I live. I live in Richmond,
Right.
so you can get there by the train. Almost everything is free.
I know, that's
It's
why
great.
I love DC. I can go
Yeah.
to these museums and I can see this art and I can walk around and see these incredible pieces of history, and I'm not paying a dime. And I went to Arlington Cemetery and we got to see the when they change over for, what's that grave? The unmarked soldier. The grave of the unmarked soldier, and they like do a changeover of like there's always a guard that's overlooking that, and it was like silent, and it was just this really eerie, beautiful, incredible like experience. And I tell people all the time, like, if you've never been to DC, you have to go. I love museums. They even had a Shakespeare's Tavern. Like, they had everything.
Yeah, and they have a Ghirardelli store in the train station.
I didn't know that. I haven't been in a long time. I got to go again. But I wouldn't live there, but I would definitely visit there once a year if I had the opportunity.
But yeah, that's parts 1 through 3 of Heather's book. And then our next episode picks up on part 4. Or wait, no, that's parts 1 through 2.
Yeah, we haven't hit Bad Wife yet.
Yeah, so yeah, that's parts 1 and 2 of Bad Mormon. And then the next episode picks up parts 3. I'm pretty sure it's part 3 and the rest of the book, except for the last chapter. The last chapter is part 3. You're Literally On is hosted and produced by yours truly, Dacey O'Kelly. Our editor and resident audio wizard is Dustin Goddard. Thank you so much for your support. Please follow the pod wherever you get your podcast, and feel free to rate and review. As always, support your local bookstore and remember to always be kind. Bye.